Way before I got into reading manga, there was a point in my life when I grew up around comic books. Had I not found about manga, I would have been an avid comic book reader. Interestingly enough, manga was quite different from how we know it today. Popular titles like Blade of the Immortal, Ghost in the Shell, and even Dragon Ball were all printed like comic books in the 90s. So instead of manga like we know it today, what if manga was treated like comic books in the West? The main reason as to why manga was printed like comics in the 90s was so that it would be easier for the Western audience to pick up and read. In this what if scenario, Viz and Dark Horse would have continued to print manga like this throughout the years. This in turn would prompt other Western publishers to follow in their footsteps. So instead of reading manga traditionally from right to left, we would be reading them from left to right. In addition to this, the amount of content would be drastically different. Manga as we know it is printed in standard paperback volumes. Each volume roughly contains 10 or so chapters. If manga was treated like comic books, then we would have paperback issues instead of volumes. Using Darkstalkers Morrigan as an example, there's 22 pages that's dedicated to the story. That's basically one chapter's worth of content in manga. If you're a manga fan that doesn't read comic books, I could imagine this would piss you off. If you wanted to get a physical copy, you'd be spending your money for one chapter each issue. Speaking of spending money, let's talk about how much these comic book versions of manga would cost. So the standard price for one paperback volume ranges from $11.99 to $19.99. According to Comicron.com, the average price for a single paperback comic book is $3.99. Since it would be printed in black and white, let's say one issue would cost $1.99 today. To read the same amount as one volume, you'd need to get 10 issues, which would cost $19.90. Prices like that would scare away fans from the hobby. Finally, we move on to the biggest change. Traditionally, manga have one author and one artist working on the series. Their story starts from Volume 1, Chapter 1, all the way up to the final volume, final chapter. This makes it easy for people to jump into a new series. Now, what if I told you I wanted to start reading The Amazing Spider-Man? You might suggest I start with issue number 1. The problem is, there's 4 of them. In this what-if scenario, we wouldn't just have the original story from Japan. So just like Marvel and DC, there would be other writers and artists working on their own storylines, kind of like the TMNT Naruto miniseries. It would eventually get to a point where newer fans wouldn't know where to start. But what are your thoughts if manga was treated like comic books in the West? As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.